Bears lose 21-28 at the Packers. It's safe to say that was a game of two halves with the pass offense. The first half is probably the worst I've seen us play in a long time in terms of the offense, and then in terms of the second half, it was probably the best I've seen them play in a while, actually. The first half was not great in terms of the offense. It felt very similar to the Cleveland game where Justin Fields got about 69 yards in the whole game. It felt like we couldn't do anything against that defensive line. Parsons was like on a mission to get a sack, wasn't he? He was absolutely dominant and we couldn't get anything going. Caleb's accuracy is obviously going to get put into question again, which I think is fair enough. I feel like next year he's going to clean that up, but his accuracy was an issue. However, there was drop passes. And it just felt like any momentum we were getting in the first half, it was completely destroyed by the offense. For an example, when we had the pass interception, it felt like, right, let's go. First play, Loveland drops the ball. And actually, it was quite thankful he did drop it because if he didn't, it probably would have been Green Bay's ball. And it just kind of summed up that first half. The play calling, I thought, was a bit of a mystery as well, even though we were getting a bit of momentum at one point, usually from the refs' calls, which is a very weird thing to say as a Bears fan, because usually we don't get the good end of the stick from the refs. It just felt like we got a bit too like cute with the play calling. It felt like we were trying to do a trick play at one point, giving it to Moore, and it just got blew up straight away because that defensive line was just all over us in the first half. And the sloppy half kind of was summed up at the end where we get a field goal, we get 3 points, and it felt like we were quite lucky going into the half 7-3 down. And then Santos, who I seem to bring up pretty much every other week, I'd probably say, is unable to kick the ball past the landing zone, which meant that the Green Bay could start at their 40, opens up the playbook. The defense should have played better, granted. However, it's just a shame Santos just couldn't, get a good kick, get them to start on the 20 or the 30. But defense was poor, Santos was poor. Second half, it was like a complete U-turn. Caleb is frustrating to watch because at 1 minute he can't complete a 6 yard pass to Swift, but then he does one of the best passes I've seen him do for the Bears, where he rolls out to the side, makes an incredible pass to Komet. One of my favorite plays that he's done. He also then follows that up with a touchdown, great touchdown, where I actually thought it was going to be intercepted. I remember screaming, thinking, why is he throwing it there? It was a really tight window, but it was a touchdown. Fair play to Caleb. And it felt the second half that we had the ball for pretty much majority of the game, it felt like. But unfortunately, our defense just couldn't do a thing, couldn't stop them. Even if Green Bay had the ball for a minute, they could respond to whatever we did previously. And it ended up being pretty much our downfall for the rest of the game. Yes, Caleb got intercepted at the end, but if the defense can't stop him, it was going to be a bit of a struggle. I felt like it was a good loss in a way, just because of the second half performance, but it's a loss to Green Bay. But today I'm joined by Chief from Barstool Chicago. Thanks so much for coming on. Um, just I guess the first question is, would you look at that as a good loss in terms of the second half performance, or do you kind of look at that and think, no, that was crap because we just lost to Green Bay?
I think it's a mix of both, and thanks for having me. But yeah, definitely a mix of both. You don't want to have moral victories, especially when you were first place in the NFC heading into that game. They definitely had a chance to win that game. Like you said, they started very slow. But if this did not feel like the same old Bears that I've grown up with, where you go up to, Green Bay in a big spot and you lose by 30. So they started slow. It was like, oh, here we go again. And they kicked off to start the second half. Defense responded right away with a quick stop, and then the Bears really imposed their will. They were really running the ball kind of right down their throats. And and that is the calling card of this team. So they have the great run schemes. They got the two backs, Monungai and Swift both running hard. The interior of that line with Tooney and Dahlman and Jonah Jackson, like those guys really set the tone for everything. And then they can run play action off of that. And I thought that Caleb had a very good second half. We could pick apart that 4th and 1 to end the game, the interception all day long. Probably should have thrown it earlier. Probably should have thrown it more towards the corner to give Komet a better chance at it. But, he's still learning how to play quarterback and learning how to do it with Ben Johnson. So, like you said, I do think next year we'll see him take an even bigger leap. I think he's been a very competent quarterback by and large this year. So I'm happy with Caleb. I'm not happy with the loss, but to me, it is one of those games where you're like, all right, well, if Green Bay is one of the best teams in the NFC and they're talked about as a Super Bowl team, then what are the Bears? Because on the road, a chance to tie it late. And I thought the second half, the Bears were the better team. They just got to clean up a few things defensively. It felt like it was more about busted coverages and maybe a little bit of some mental lapses on defense that ended up costing them because they've been pretty good against the big play this year, save for maybe that Detroit game. And then they got burned by it against Jordan Love and Green Bay. So, it's one of those things where it's like now the Browns game becomes a must win to keep the playoff hope alive. And then you got Green Bay at home, and you kind of got to win that one too. So it's all right in front of them. Bears control their own destiny, and I think we're in a much better spot than I would have guessed if you asked me back in September.
Yeah, I think the way I'd say it was a good loss is because before the Phillies game, it was kind of, oh, they're just winning because we've got a soft schedule and we're beating the
Hmm.
easiest teams. And then we've just played the Super Bowl champs, beat them at their home, and we give Green Bay a game, didn't we? We were competitive. So to me, it's kind of shut up that kind of criticism of we can only beat the crapper teams, if you like.
Yeah,
And we show we could compete against the good ones, can't we? And do you do you take positives from that game going into next week? Because obviously we're only playing it like next Saturday, I believe, isn't it? Next Saturday.
yeah.
So are you feeling more confident about that game, that we could get a win, or are you a bit more worried about how our defense was in that game?
I didn't think the defense was that bad. I thought
Mhm.
they kept things in front of them. They've had so many injuries. So if you get Tremaine Edmonds back and Jalen Johnson, that was his first game against a good quarterback. Say what you want about the Eagles being Super Bowl champs, but their offense, especially the passing game, has not looked good this year. So Jordan Love's and Christian Watson and Jaden Reed, like they got a lot of weapons in Green Bay and a good quarterback. So there's definitely some things to clean up. But I like our team and our defense has grown. They have to find a way to get more pressure on the quarterback. I think Montez Sweat had one sack in the game and he was the only one. So I don't know if that means blitzes or guys just having to step up, but they got to have some sort of a pass rush because you're not going to beat good quarterbacks without a pass rush. So there are things to get better. I do still feel like it's essentially a toss-up game. I can't sit here and say like I feel like the Bears are going to beat Green Bay just because it's in Soldier Field. I don't feel that way. But I also, did not feel like they couldn't win in Lambeau. So I think these two teams are pretty even, and I think that's a good thing. When was the last time these two teams are pretty even? It very rarely happens in my lifetime. Usually it's the Packers stomping on you. So I'm cautiously optimistic for the rest of the season. I think you got to find a way to get 2 wins, and if you don't get any help, you might need 3 wins. So it's going to be, and you talked about, they can compete with the good teams. Well, we're going to find out. So the Browns are the Browns. Bad weather game. They have a great defense. I got some dark thoughts in my mind about this game, but I think the Bears will find a way to win. And then you go Green Bay, San Francisco, Detroit. Those are three teams that are very good teams the last 5 years and very good teams this year. So, uh, two of those teams will probably be in the playoffs, maybe all three if the Bears don't take care of business. So, we'll find out exactly how good they are here down the stretch.
Yeah, I feel like we've got away from Green Bay torturing us a bit because even last year when it was a bit of a shit show last year, let's be honest,
Hmm.
we could have easily beaten them twice last year. I mean, what we should have beaten them in Soldier Field really, and we did actually at Lambeau, didn't we? And then we give them a game on last Sunday, so I'm feeling quite
Yeah.
good about it. But
Yeah, I will
what's
say so. I was at both the Bears Packers games last year. So through a sponsor, I had tickets right in the front row, right even with the goalpost, ready to see them kick the game-winning field goal. Oh my gosh, we finally beat the Packers. Block, lose, heartbreak, the same old thing. I just walked 4 miles home that day. I was so
God.
depressed. And then they did win last game of the year up there, but the Packers didn't have much to play for. Jordan Love got knocked out, so you beat Malik Willis. It still took a miracle. I didn't come out. It felt nice to get one, but I didn't feel like that was a real indication. Last week was the first time where I'm like, all right, we have our coach, we have our quarterback, we have an improving team kind of across the board, and they still just you know, this close. Just a couple more plays here and there, and you're going to beat Green Bay. But I like the attitude. I like how hard the running backs run. When Monangai got pushed in by Tooney and Dahlman on the 2-point conversion, it's like that's like a big boy attitude play. I loved that. So it's like this is not a soft team. They're going to compete. But yeah, they have to win these next two games. Because if you win these next two games and you look at who your your kind of rivals are in the division, Green Bay has to go to Denver. That's not an easy game. And then Detroit is playing a desperate Baltimore Ravens team, I believe. So like it's a must win for Baltimore. So if you get a little bit of help and you beat the Browns, well, now you're right back in first place and you have a little bit of a cushion. So it's a very, very important week across the board for the Bears. Will be schedule watching for sure.
100%. Could I just get your opinion on, I mean, Ben Johnson was quite straight to the point about it last week. He kind of backtracked a little bit, but he said, the passing game, we're kind of winning despite the passing game. He came back and kind of said, I wish I didn't phrase it that way. Why do you think the passing game is so inconsistent? Do you think it's just Caleb is actually being able to develop this year because he couldn't last year? Or is it because it's Ben Johnson's first year as well as a head coach? Is it just a mixture of things, or is it what do you think it is?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of everything. So it's like Ben Johnson learning Caleb, Caleb obviously learning Ben Johnson, the receivers too. I'm a little bit disappointed this year in DJ Moore, where it's like, you signed him to the big contract to be your wide receiver one, and he just hasn't been getting the targets. It feels like he's not as involved in the offense. It's almost like Luther Burden is starting to ascend and take some of his targets, maybe a little bit of his role in the offense. I still really like DJ Moore. But I think, the more we get going here, I think it's a positive sign that both tight ends are becoming a bigger part of the offense. I think that's good for Caleb. They're attacking the middle part of the field. That's really good. And I think that's a mismatch on most linebackers. Both of those tight ends, Cole Kmet and Colson Loveland, are good athletes. They're big bodies. So I think those are good things. The running backs, that is the hallmark. I think having, Trapillo has been fine. Theo Benedet's been fine at times, but not having, a left tackle that you really truly trust, that hurts the passing game as well. And then, Rome Odunze, he started off the year incredibly hot, has really cooled off, and obviously he was injured last week. So it just hasn't really come together. But I think there's enough signs that things are starting to click. And then Caleb, he has some accuracy issues sometimes. He doesn't read the game, maybe as quickly as you would like. And sometimes, obviously, on that 4th and 1, you didn't see that. But it's like the arm talent is so insane. The pass to Cole on the run, the zip on the one to Zacchaeus for the touchdown. There's several others where it's just like he's making throws that not many guys can make. And as he kind of really figures out how to play the position and play within this Ben Johnson offense, I think we'll see him become, certainly a top 10 quarterback in the league and maybe even higher ceiling than that. So, but yeah, it's if they can start clicking in the passing game, then it's like pick your poison because the running game is probably the best in the league. And it's like, do you want to? I'm kind of the opinion where it's like, well, this team has an identity now, and whatever you get from the passing game is gravy. Let's just keep pounding the ball and pounding the rock and let Monangai beat people up. He's got to be the last guy any linebacker wants to see coming at him straight ahead. So let's just keep doing what you're good at and try to, eke out these wins. And they might need a little bit more from the passing game this week against a pretty good Browns defense. But yeah, I'm not long term. I'm not really concerned. I still don't think the Bears are like a Super Bowl team or anything where you're going to need that offense to be clicking on all cylinders. Just get to the playoffs and see what happens.
Yeah, so going to that Cleveland game, like you said, I said I talked to you before we went recording. So you come to England quite a bit, and
Hmm.
we like to moan about the weather, and so I've seen the weather for Chicago on Sunday, and it looks a bit
Hmm.
grim. So it's probably going to be quite a difficult pass game, it would be fair to say. So do you think it's one of those type
Yeah,
of
I'd
games
say
where, yeah, so
it's going to be. We're on Fahrenheit, so you'll have to do the
yeah,
calculations in
yeah,
your
yeah.
head. But it's supposed to be with the wind chill factor. It's supposed to be -20. So if freezing is 32, call it, 50 degrees below that. It's going to be a nasty, ugly day. So,
So,
yeah. I
so
know it rains a lot in England. It does rain a lot in England. You got a little bit less daylight, but you don't have this.
no,
This
no.
is going to be miserable.
Yeah, so I mean, like with that in mind, then is this going to be a type of game where it's just win the game, just win the
Yeah.
game? It doesn't matter like how you're going to do it. You know, Caleb's not going to look flashy, probably. Just win the game, run the hell out of it. Is it going to be
Yeah.
one of those type of games? You think?
I do, and I think it's going to be like I think they'll probably need one big shot over the top because they're gonna come down. They're gonna bring the safeties down to stop the running game. So if you can move the pocket a little bit on some of these play actions like naked bootlegs and stuff, and give Caleb kind of a run pass option where he can find Rome or somebody deep, and then if it's just not there, just pick up 2, 3, 4 yards with your legs and just keep the chains moving. But it's going to be an ugly, difficult game, that's for sure. It's going to be miserable out there. I don't envy any of the players involved in this one.
Now, I've seen a lot of media outlets that are saying they actually think that Saunders could actually outplay Caleb. I mean, the weather's probably going to take away that competition, but do you
No,
agree with that? Like, I
that's
don't, I can't see it.
I.
No, but
So a good friend of mine is the offensive coordinator for the Browns, and he
okay.
really does like Shadur Sanders a lot. Um, and he had a good game last week against the Titans. He threw for 300 something yards, but he's not a better prospect than Caleb, and he's not going to be better than Caleb. The Browns defense is a problem. They have a very good defense. Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in the league. So like that's real, okay? But I trust our defense to at least shut down the Browns enough to get the Bears a win.
Mhm. So I've got to ask about, and you kind of answered it already actually, but obviously you work for Barstool, and I saw quite a few articles, probably around week two, week three, saying that Caleb was like a bust, basically. Um, I mean, you've already kind of answered it. You're not concerned that's the case here because you think like, yeah, I think you've kind of got the same mindset as me, where you think next year he's going to go up another level. But I think he's actually been decent this year anyway as well.
Yeah, he's been better. He's not a bust. We have one
Hmm.
guy who writes for us who is allegedly a Bears fan who just cannot say anything positive about Caleb. Like he can't do it. He hates him for some reason. He doesn't believe in him, doesn't believe in anything. I think he might have a little bit of Bears, PTSD, where it's like, here we go again, another quarterback, another coach, another, it's like just rinse and repeat. And that, it's hard to blame a guy for that, but at some point you got to just use your eyeballs. It's not it's not blind faith anymore. Like they're 9-4. He's he's going to be the first Bears quarterback likely ever. I think he's still on pace to throw for 4,000 yards. He doesn't really turn the ball over that much. There are definitely things that he has to improve upon. But if you think about it, like when he was in college, it was just like, hey, run around, make a play. He didn't have to be inside of a structure and an offense. And then last year's rookie year was obviously a complete disaster from a coaching standpoint. You can make an argument that this is the first time he's ever really been coached. It was always shotgun. It was always, extend the play, be the hero. He's having to play in a structure right now. He's under center a lot. Ben Johnson is making him molding him actively every day into being an NFL quarterback. And then once you have that stuff dialed in, then Caleb can do all the things that make him different and make him special. The improvisation, the spinning out of sacks, the throwing on the run. He's got to still work on some of the basics, and then once he has all the basics dialed, and it's, 1, 2, 3, go, for little hitch routes and drags and curls and all that kind of stuff. Once he's playing on time, his X factor will always be the escapability, the improvisation, and we know he can do that. It's just like, can he play within a structure that every quarterback in the NFL has to do to be successful? I think he'll get there. He's shown a lot of improvement over the course of this year in that department. And yeah, we have one guy in particular that is a Caleb hater on our website who I've actually never met, because he doesn't work out of our office. But yeah, so I think we'll get there. It's just a matter of time and just a little bit more patience. And I think most most Bears fans, I don't know about you, but I probably would have been happy with, if you asked me in September, 7, 8, 9 wins, I think was like an appropriate prediction for this team. They've already exceeded my expectations. I've had so much fun watching this team this year with all the late game heroics and upsets and the field goals and the block field goals, and they've just found ways to win, and Ben Johnson ripping his shirt off. Like they're just a very fun team. And if you can't get on board with that, then that's your own problem.
Mhm. No, 100%. I mean, I said before the Vikings game, like week one, that is, um, I just want to see a bit of improvement. And I felt Caleb would have an up and down year because last year was such a just yeah, just
Yeah,
bad.
it was
Well,
miserable.
but yeah, and like Caleb couldn't develop, could he? It was just he was just running for his life, and you
Hmm.
felt like this year was actually going to be kind of his real rookie year, maybe the way he's able
Yeah.
to actually develop, where he's actually got a
Hmm.
head coach that's who's going to be tough on him. He's going to be he's not stroking his hair saying he's perfect, and that's what he wanted, and that's what he's got, and yeah, I mean the fact that we're fighting for players at this point in the season is is past my expectations. I just
It's incredible.
the whole culture's just changed. I've had guys on from Chicago who are saying like the city's just completely bouncing because of the team at the minute, and it's just take that from last year. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and if they win on Sunday, most of us are going to be hunkered up on our couch anyway, so we're going to be feeling a little bit warmer and fuzzier after a Bears game. They do really impact your mood, and we've had a pretty good year. Sorry, my dog's walking through here. We've had a pretty good year across the board in Chicago, where the Cubs make the playoffs. The Blackhawks are kind of back, but there's nothing like what the Bears do to this city. This is always going to be a Bears town first and foremost. Everybody else is fighting for second. So when they're having a year like this and an unexpected year, and we're starving for it, we haven't. I don't count the Nickelodeon game or COVID or whatever. Like the last time anyone had any real hope about the Bears was that 2018, the double doink year. So it's been, you know,
Yeah.
7 years. Like that's a long time. So, and it's not only has it been 7 years, and this has been a fun and great year, but because you have a young quarterback and a young coach, and they're going to be tied together for a long time, it gives you hope for not just the rest of this month and the rest of the season, but next year and the year after. And it feels like we're at the start of something like truly special here. Like, who knows if they ever get a Super Bowl, but just being a competent franchise where you're not the laughing stock of the league, especially for, people like you and me who are just on the internet. And every time you open your phone, you're just getting inundated with trolls and you can't even argue with them because they're right. So, but now it does feel different. So, I'm hoping we're entering into like a good era of Chicago Bears football.
So one last question, I'll let you go. Bit of a like asking for a prediction. So obviously the NFC at the minute is just crazy, isn't it? Because we were first place before the Green Bay game and now we're seventh. So we've got the Browns next, Green Bay, 49ers, and Lions. What's your predictions? What would you say if you had to bet, or if you're going to bet on it, what are you going to say?
Um, Hold on one second. I want to pull up the schedule and make sure I get this right. Um, because I want to see who the Lions have too, because it would be quite nice if so the Lions don't play. I was wrong about the Lions schedule. I said they play the Ravens. They play the Rams this week. Even
Okay.
better. Even
Yeah.
better. Okay. So the Lions are currently third place among those teams. They have the Rams, the Steelers, the Vikings, and the Bears. So that game's going to be massive. So there's no
Mhm.
there's no easy way. I think they'll win. They got to find a way to get at least 2 wins. So I'll say that they win this week and next week. And then it's just a shame that the NFC West is so tough too, because the 49ers are going to need that game because the Rams and the Seahawks are still above them as well. So I'll say they finish 11-6,
Okay.
and I'm not sure if that's going to be enough.
Hmm.
Because if you lose to the 49ers and the Lions, we really need the Rams to win this week. We
Mhm.
really, really need the Rams to win this week. And maybe Aaron Rodgers does us a favor next week when it's Steelers against the Lions. Wouldn't that be something?
Well, I imagine that there. Yeah,
Yeah.
but thank you so much for coming on. I'll send you a Middlesbrough scarf so you can put that behind you next time. And
I'm good on that. Appreciate
yeah,
that. I'm good on that. Take care of that boy, Aiden Morris. Is he still there?
he's still there. He's playing
Yeah,
well.
nice
Yeah,
American lad. So you
ah,
just be nice
exactly.
to him, and that's fine. I don't need any other scars from any other clubs. And Forest till I die. That's all I got.